This meeting of the Anderson Township Board of Zoning Appeals is hereby called to order. The board was established pursuant to Section 519.13 of the Ohio Revised Code by the Anderson Township trustees to provide administrative relief to any person or entity adversely affected by the Anderson Township zoning resolution. Will the secretary please call the roll?
Mr. Heimkreiter? Mr. Nye?
Here.
Mr. Shekels?
Here.
Mr. Halpin?
Present.
Mr. Lawrence, sorry.
Thank you for coming to this meeting of the Anderson Township Board of Zoning Appeals. Please be aware that this meeting is audio and videotaped and may be carried live on television. First, I'll outline the procedures. A summary of the appeal is presented by the staff. Then the appellant will present its case. The board members will then ask questions of the appellant. After that, all persons supporting the appeal will be permitted to testify one at a time after being recognized by the chairman. When those persons supporting the appeal are finished, those opposed to the appeal will then be permitted to testify and/or ask questions of the board after being recognized by the chairman. All persons wishing to testify, whether for or against an appeal, may only do so after being sworn in. When testifying, each person must come forward to the podium after being recognized. Speak into the microphone and state their name, address, and any affiliation to the case. All persons testifying will be limited to 4 minutes unless a board member requests additional time. All testimony is given to the board only. No comments or questions are to be directed to the appellant or anyone else in the audience. The board will only hear new, non-repetitive evidence or questions. Should someone wish to show support of previous testimony, they may do so by following the testimony procedures and state their support of previous testimony. Now, will all persons who may give testimony this evening please stand, raise their right hand, and swear or affirm? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Are there any changes to tonight's agenda?
No changes from staff.
I move that we accept the agenda as written. Go ahead and swear him in.
Did you swear in? Yep. And did you sign in on the sheet outside? If you just want to sign that in, then you're good.
Second the motion?
Roll call.
Aye. Jeff? Don't say no.
Mr. Heimkreiter?
Yes.
Mr. Nye?
Aye.
Mr. Shekels?
Aye.
Mr. Halpin?
Aye.
Mr. Lawrence?
Aye.
I motion that we approve the minutes.
Are these the
Second.
amended minutes we have passed out here on the table?
Correct. Yeah. If you want to do a quick scan, they have been amended.
I just did. I had suggested one change to staff, so it looks good to me. So I would second that.
Please call roll.
Mr. Heimkreiter?
Aye.
Mr. Nye?
Aye.
Mr. Shekels?
Aye.
Mr. Halpin?
Aye.
Mr. Lawrence?
Aye. Please read staff summary for case number 152024.
Thank you, board. As stated by. Oh. Before I start my presentation, this is Eli. He's our new planner on staff here. He'll be going forward with us on BZA, and then Sarah will eventually depart your services back to zoning commission for Sarah. So, want to make sure you were able to meet him, and we'll be seeing a lot of him moving forward. So, thank you, board. This is, as stated, this is case 15/2024 BZA. The applicant being Kyle Gardner of the Thunderdome Restaurant Group for City Bird Development on behalf of Cobblestone Street. 2 LLC, which is the property owner for 7893 Beachmont Avenue. So the zoning is E-retail, and the request is a variance request for existing wall signs that combine to a size of 643 square feet, where a maximum of 200 square feet is the maximum allotment per Article 5.5 G2 of the Anderson Township zoning resolution. So the proposed development, the applicant is proposing to keep 3 existing wall signs, one that's a 12 by 10, another that is a 13 by 13, and a third which is a 15 by 15, which equates to 514 square feet of additional wall signage. 250 square feet is the maximum allotment, and they currently have 129 square feet of wall signage, which were approved through zoning certificates. So the history, the applicant received a stamp off for interior modifications to the property in 2019, was approved for 7 wall signs, which again were 129 square feet combined, and 3 directional signs in February of 2020. And then the applicant stated that the unpermitted painted signs have been up since 2020. Staff reached out to the applicant in April of 2024 regarding the violations. So here's a property map of the property in question. Again, at 7893 Beachmont Avenue at the corner of King Louis Court and Beachmont Avenue. Here's an aerial map of that property. And then we have the topography as well for that property. So here's, if you were at the front of City Bird, this is the vantage point that you'd be looking at. There's the front of City Bird as well as Beachmont Avenue that you'd see from the front. Here's a side view of the City Bird development, and you can note the signage there in the top right-hand corner in question with the locally owned and operated and the logo there. This is from the opposite side, so this would be the eastern side. And again, you can see the sign in question, as well as what it would look like from Beachmont Avenue from that side, as well as the restaurant itself. And then here you can see the back of the property or the building in question, and then the applicant's submittals here as well. Noted in your packet was the zoning definition of a mural and non-commercial sign, and the sign as well. This is considered wall signage. That was just noted in case there were questions regarding murals versus wall signage, but by our definitions, this is considered a wall sign, and would be, again, we would look at Article 5.5 to see what regulations would apply there. Staff findings. Staff is of the opinion that the variance might be substantial. The signs are aesthetically pleasing with the facade improvements and are consistent with the Anderson Township design guidelines. However, they are more than 2.5 times more than the allowed property signage at the property. The character of the neighborhood would not be altered. There are multiple businesses in the area that have painted signs. Theirs are within the allowed signage, they're within their guidelines, and the variance wouldn't adversely affect governmental services. The property owner's predicament may not be obviated through some other method than a variance. They have been approved for, again, that 129 square feet, so they have 121 square feet of additional signage that could be approved. However, that's only enough for roughly one of the signs. And staff is of the opinion that the spirit and intent behind the zoning requirement would not be observed through granting the variance, as it only allows for 200 square feet of wall signage, and it would be over 2.5 times that allowed amount. These are the standards to be considered, and that concludes staff's presentation.
Are there any questions from the board?
The permitted signage they already have, is that the freestanding facing Beachmont signage? This here, that's the 100 and whatever that's already allotted, so to speak.
That's part of it. Interestingly enough, they don't have a freestanding sign out front, but yeah, they have obviously their wall signage with the City Bird there. There's additionally, you have the drive-through, you have the tender sandwiches on that side, and then again there's a drive-through, and then the logo again right there. Those were all approved and are allowed as of right. The only ones in question, again, are all the ones that are painted.
Okay, so if I understand correctly, they could keep the 12 by 10, which is locally owned and operated, but then on the other side of the building where it's, you know, free range or whatever it is, free roaming, yeah, that one would put them over. And oh, and then the third one is right next to the words on the other side, right? Yeah, so this is really at the top right there. That's essentially two signs. That's a 10 by 12 and a, I forget what the dimensions were, 13 by 13. Is that right?
I believe so. I think if the appellant can speak to that a little bit more as their time to speak. But yeah, there's the locally owned and operated. That's one sign. The logo right next to it is another sign, and then this is one sign combined. Most of the word verbiage kind of falls within the logo. But so those are the three signs in question, and I think roughly they could, as of right, keep one of them, just depending on how the math worked out.
Yeah.
But
Okay, so, and back to the other side again,
Sure.
if you could. Again, we're saying the top right, this is essentially two signs, just for math purposes. And
Sure.
we're saying the right half is a sign and not a mural because it's the company logo. If it was a painting of some other kind of chicken that wasn't their logo, would it be a mural that wouldn't count in the math?
Sarah, do you wanna
Hard to
touch
say,
on that?
right?
I mean, the
Yeah.
mural element is a bit tricky because a lot of this you could see as marketing. We don't regulate the content of it. However, it is again clearly a sign, not
Yeah.
a painting in this case. And Sarah, I'll let you speak to that a little bit more if you want to.
Yeah, so I didn't mean to confuse the board with the definition of the mural being in the staff report, but it was put in there basically just to show the fact that because these are painted on doesn't make it a mural. It's a sign. We have other signs around the township that are also painted on their buildings that were permitted as wall signage. So we're treating these the same way.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? We will now take testimony from those persons who support the appeal. Oh, that's wrong. I'm sorry. Will the appellant or the appellant's representative please come to the podium? Speak into the microphone, state your name, address, and any affiliation, and
Where's the
present your
podium?
appeal.
There is no podium.
Yeah, where's the
Yeah.
podium?
It should be about right where you're standing.
Now you see it. We see it now. Yeah. Just speak loudly.
I appreciate all everything you guys are doing. My name is John Monk. I'm actually from a restaurant group downtown. I'm here in place of Kyle. Pretty important. Kyle's out of town currently. I also felt this was really important for us to get in front of you guys and discuss. As mentioned, we've been operating since 2020. But
any questions from the board?
Nope.
I'm looking again at what you see in the top right there. I'm just thinking about, one of the factors you're supposed to consider is whether there's some other way you could, solve the problem. Do you know what it would take? So I think if you took these two signs in the top right and combined them into one and moved the words in front of the bird or the bird behind the words and grayed out the rest, it seems like that takes away, maybe half your overage there. Is that feasible? Do you know what that would take? I mean, aesthetics aside.
Yeah. It's kind of like this one.
Right, yeah, much more like that, right.
That's the bird kind of, and yeah, we're really counting all the way here instead of just that. We just felt like, again, it wasn't loud, it wasn't screaming, anything, it was just tone on tone, a little darker, just kind of a subtle, design element. We absolutely consider a mural, we don't consider it part of signage, but I know that, there's another interpretation of that. But the only real way is to respect the birds. It would be difficult here with that kind of thing. And it'd be an additional cost for the business owner.
I have a question. Excuse me. You may not be able to answer this, but when you got the building permit, was the signage as part of the building permit? Did you apply for a separate signage permit?
I don't think it may not.
So the Hamilton County Building Department does look at the ones that come out from the building, so any block letters,
Right.
it's things like that, but they don't look at what's painted on the building.
Okay, that's my question on that. Okay.
Any other questions?
Nope.
Thank you. We will now take testimony from those persons who support the appeal. Remember, you must first be recognized, come to the podium, speak into the microphone, state your name, address, and any affiliation to the case. Anybody speaking in favor? Hearing none, we will now take testimony from those who oppose the appeal. Hearing none. Any further questions from the board?
No.
Mr. Chair, I move that we close the public hearing on case 15.
Second it.
Hearing a second, please call roll.
Mr. Heimkreider?
Yay.
Mr. Nye?
Aye.
Mr. Shekels?
Aye.
Mr. Halpin?
Aye.
Mr. Lawrence?
Aye.
Go ahead. I know you got.
I'll start. This is kind of a tough one for me because I was one of the people who asked a question about signs versus murals. Is this a sign? Is this a mural? I understand the argument for why it's a sign. I also understand the argument for why it's a mural and maybe shouldn't count. But I think under the definition, it probably is a sign. Hey, the podium's here. All right. I think the big factor that we always consider in these things, to me, is the character of the neighborhood, and it's hard for me to see how this adversely affects the character of the neighborhood. There are a lot of other signs and murals, or signs and painted signs across the street, next door, all over. I take the point that those are, so far as we've heard, all relatively smaller and therefore permitted. And so would it be appropriate to grant this variance in light of the, everyone else is compliant essentially. So that's a little tough for me. That said, I don't see how the character of the neighborhood will be altered by continuing to permit this. It's been there for a while, not permitted, but it's been there for a while. It's hard to see how making them change it would improve the character of the neighborhood. It's hard to see how this detracts from the character of the neighborhood. Obviously, some of the other factors don't really weigh either way. It's nothing to do with governmental services, all that sort of thing. the big one is the character of the neighborhood. I don't think it adversely affects the character of the neighborhood as is. The other one is how substantial it is. And I think we've heard they're over by, 540.
Is it 2.5 times?
Yeah, 2.5 times. So 250 is permitted, and they have 643. So they're over by, a decent amount. That's why I asked the question about, could you combine the two into one? It's just hard for me to conclude that that would sort of be doing justice within the spirit and intent of the resolution. But I allow that it's a close call. It is over by a lot. They should have known better. The resolution's been in place since they put it up. Those factors weigh against them. So I think it's a close call, and I think I'm open to being persuaded either way. I'd like to hear what other people have to say.
About a year or so ago, we had another sign on Beachmont Avenue that they wanted to do far less over than this. And the township zoning, not us, has been pretty adamant about the zoning signage for a long while, and that they didn't want Beachmont Avenue to look like, one other townships in the neighborhood. And that's not offensive at all to me. I think it's a nice looking sign, very nice looking sign. If we grant that one, are we setting a precedent that the next building down the line, who wants to put an orange pineapple with a green arrow and a blue heart in it, 3 times the size that are allowed, I think we've established a precedent there. Because of the amount of the overreach. But again, it's a very attractive sign, and I have the same dilemma you do. So we're weighing what the zoning direction in the township has been, and having rejected one which was smaller on Beachmont overreach, if you remember where the old dentist office is last year.
That was a freestanding.
Yeah, it was a freestanding sign, but it's still under the same zoning area.
Yeah.
And so I think, in that case, I'm struggling to approve it, but I really like it.
Sir, our
Yeah.
public hearing is closed for now. Thanks.
Mhm.
The difference between those is that the Beachmont plan and our design guidelines have tried to steer away from freestanding signage. And so, again, like Stephen said, this property doesn't have a freestanding sign.
Right. But then, shouldn't this be a matter for the zoning committee to address going forward?
It could be.
Because, if we make this decision, then we've set the precedent, not the zoning committee. And this is one of the harder ones I've had since I've been here,
Mhm.
for just that reason.
I'm okay with it. I don't feel that we have to worry about other people until they bring the problem to the table. And so, in my opinion, this signage is not offensive. It's okay in the character of the neighborhood. And if somebody decides to put up a big orange one with a pink heart in it, then that becomes a possible issue that may not be in character with the neighborhood. So I'd probably be against that. But the long and the short is that I'm okay with this.
Well, the standard shouldn't be what personally offends me or not, because this doesn't offend me and I really like it. But that shouldn't be the standard of whether it offends me or not.
Well, I agree, but other than to say that it's okay in the character of that neighborhood, because that's a commercial area. And so in my opinion, a commercial area is going to draw signage in one way or another.
Yeah.
And of course, we have regulations to control that, but we also have the opportunity to make exceptions.
Yeah.
But in my opinion, this is an exception that's acceptable.
I would say the only thing I'm struggling with is the precedent, but I have been around long enough to know what a couple of those lots looked like or parcels looked like previously. So, kudos to the improvements and investments in that, in those properties, but, yeah, that's the only thing I have struggling with is the precedent, and if that becomes an issue, going forward by deciding on one, but I guess to your point that it would be a case-by-case basis, and this is an area that, you know, the neighborhood is commercial. I know there's some apartments behind the backside of that, but none of those signs are, you know, if you're looking at the back of the building, you don't see those signs from the back of the building because they're on the sides. So I'm, and quite frankly, until earlier when I looked at pictures, I didn't see the bird logo at all because it's just a different shade. So to your point, it's not, you know, a bright color and stands out.
It's a very attractive sign.
So
I'm not denying that at
yeah,
all. I really like it.
I'm leaning towards in favor.
The other thing is that we're not getting any complaints about it.
It's also true. There's no one here to
Those
complain.
were the things I was thinking, is that one, nobody's here to complain about it. And two, to tell you the truth, I drive by this building probably every day, and I never even really noticed the signs.
I didn't notice it until the case came up.
Until I drove through the parking lot and went around. So, I mean,
Don't take that as offense, but it's your signage.
I mean, I've eaten there several times, but I never really paid attention. So I would be okay with leaving it.
I'd like to make a motion. Mr. Chair? In the case of 15-2024 BZA, I move that we approve the variance, citing testimony from the owner, testimony given tonight, and a thorough review this evening by the board.
Second?
Hearing second, call the roll.
Mr. Heimkreider,
Yes.
Mr. Nye,
Aye.
Mr. Shekels.
Aye.
Mr. Halpin.
Aye.
Mr. Lawrence.
Aye.
We'll be in touch next week.
Thank you. Will the staff please read summary for case number 162024?
Thank you, Board. Moving on to case number 16-2024, the applicant is property owner William Witchker. Sorry if I pronounced that wrong. The property in question is located at 417 Ben Vista Drive, and the zoning in the area is AA Residence. Before you this evening is a variance request for an existing 15 by 24 foot addition to an existing non-compliant detached garage located in the side yard, where detached accessory buildings shall be located in the rear yard and not less than 3 feet from the rear and side lot lines required per Article 5.2A(7) of the Anderson Township zoning resolution. The applicant is proposing to rectify any zoning issues that have arisen regarding the existing addition. The applicant stated that the addition has been a useful and integral part of the property over the years, which serves as an essential storage space and contributes to the overall functionality used as the property owner's woodworking workshop and value of the property. Additionally, the applicant is working to bring any other zoning violations found on the property into compliance with the zoning resolution. The house was built in 1950 and was purchased by the current owner in August of 1997. The detached garage in the side yard was present prior to the current property owner buying the property. In 2008, the addition was constructed without a permit, bringing it to its current state. During routine green space inspections, an encroachment from the fence and pool was noticed on the property and brought to the owner's attention in 2023. Since April of 2024, the township and property owner have been working to resolve the encroachments and zoning matters. A zoning certificate was issued for the fence and accessory structures, except for the garage, on May 13th, 2024. The owner has agreed to remove the pool from the property and adjust the fence and deck to be compliant. Here, we can see the location of the property, which is 0.962 acres with a frontage of approximately 254 feet. The surrounding properties are zoned AA as well. This is the aerial map highlighting how the property is surrounded by township green space and that there is a lot of existing vegetation surrounding the property. Showing topography, this highlights how the property is generally flat but slopes significantly in the far back southeast corner. And then moving on to photos of the property, here's a view looking from Van Vista Drive and showing the existing garage addition from the front, the addition from the back, and facing away from the property on the left and right sides of Van Vista Drive. Here's the request for a variance from the property owner and the site plan, which highlights the garage addition on the right side. Staff is of the opinion that the variance is not substantial. The existing detached garage was built in the side yard prior to the property owner purchasing the property. The addition was added to the existing garage in 2008, bringing it to its current state. The essential character of the neighborhood would not be altered. Lots of Van Vista tend to be more wide than deep lots, therefore limiting area for larger accessory structures in the rear yard compared to the side yard. Also, the property is bordered by township green space to the south and west and is located on a private drive with additional vegetation surrounding the existing garage, which helps provide natural screening. These factors help to conceal the garage addition from neighboring properties. The property owner's predicament may not be feasibly obviated through some method other than a variance, and according to the applicant, other options for moving the garage to another location would cause undue hardship and be detrimental to the property and its value. Staff is of the opinion that the spirit and intent behind the zoning requirement would be observed by granting the variance. Ultimately, the property owner is trying to bring the property into compliance with the zoning resolution. Here are the standards to be considered. We're happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions from the board? No questions. Will the appellant or the appellant's representative please come to the podium, speak into the microphone, state your name, address, and any affiliation, and present your appeal. Is there anything you'd like to add?
So this addition, it's been there since 2008. So you're not actually adding anything. It was just observed to have been there outside regulation, is that correct? So, okay, it's been there since 2008. Well, the addition. Yeah. Okay. I was a young man then. But now, that addition's been there since '08. Okay, oh, interesting. And you're surrounded by.
My backyard and the western edge of my yard is all green space.
Okay, and on the eastern side.
It goes downhill and around the trees.
Okay.
Can't see really. They from the trees, but nobody from the trees.
No more questions. Thank you.
Anything else? We will now take testimony from those persons who support the appeal. Remember, you must be first recognized. Come to the podium, speak into the microphone, state your name, address, and any affiliation to the case. Hearing none, We will now take testimony from those who appeal. Oppose the appeal?
Could you pop the map up so I can see
Yeah.
what
Over in this area.
Okay.
It seems to me that this area's already had a race history associated, plus, addition that has been done. So I'm guessing this is going to start in 2000. I give it a variance, so I'm going to avoid all of that. See that will happen.
Are there any others that would like to speak? Hearing none. Any questions from the board? Hearing no further comments, and if there is no objection from the board, I will close the public hearing on case number 162024. The board will take this under consideration and deliberate either, oh, that's not right. Either- That's the wrong one. I apologize.
Do you need a roll call on closing?
Well,
Yeah.
well,
Yeah,
a motion
yeah,
and a second,
yeah.
and then.
So moved.
Second. Roll call.
Yep.
Mr. Heimkreider?
Aye.
Mr. Nye?
Aye.
Mr. Shekels?
Aye.
Mr. Halpin?
Aye.
Mr. Lawrence?
Aye.
I'll start. I'd grant the variance. The factors that we're supposed to consider are whether the property in question will yield a reasonable return, or whether there can be any beneficial use of the property without the variance. The answer to that is probably yes, so that factor arguably works against the applicant, but all the other factors, I think, and factor 5 is whether they purchased the property with knowledge of the zoning restrictions. That works against them too. All of the other factors, I think, weigh in their favor. It's not a substantial variance. We've already got something in the side yard. It's now a little bit closer to the side yard, but it's closer to the side yard on a spot where there is nothing developed. There's some trees, there's some open space, there's kind of a swale or a ditch, or I probably wouldn't call it a creek, but there's a lot of open space over there. And we're not moving that much farther toward the property line, and we're not moving any closer to the street. So I don't think it's substantial. I don't think it affects the character of the neighborhood. I think the existing addition fits right in with the other types of buildings and homes on the street, and their orientation to the street and to each other. It wouldn't affect the delivery of governmental services. I don't see how the owner's predicament really could be feasibly obviated another way. I suppose they could have built the addition on the back of the existing garage. They didn't. I think if this hadn't been built yet, and he was coming here with a plan to say, I want to add a 15 by 24, we would have said, well, you could put it on the back. And yeah, I think that's right. He could have put it on the back, but does that alone warrant denial of variance? No. I think if we were in that situation, I would still be saying, yeah, I think that's an appropriate variance to put it on the east side instead of the south side. I think the spirit and intent of the zoning requirement would be observed, and substantial justice would be done by granting the variance. I certainly appreciate the neighbor's argument that he should have been here before the board 16 years ago. He should have. But 16 years ago, I'm sure we would have granted the variance. So I'm trying to think about it that way. So I would vote to grant the variance.
I agree. Doing a site visit, looking at the evidence, and I agree, Jeff.
I'm good.
Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman, in case of BZA 16-2024, I move we grant the variance, citing the staff report and the letter from the property owner dated June 11th, 2024.
You get a second?
A second?
Hearing a second, please call roll.
Mr. Heimkreider?
Aye.
Mr. Nye?
Aye.
Mr. Shekels?
Aye.
Mr. Halpin?
Aye.
Mr. Lawrence?
Aye. That's it. You're good. Staff, read the summary for case number 172024.
Thank you, Board. So in this case, we have the applicant of Nicholas and Angela Campos, the property owners at 7867 State Road. The zoning is B residence, and the variance, or the request is a variance request to allow for a agricultural structure that falls within 100 feet from any property line, located at 7867 State Road, which is not permitted under Article 3.1C 11A and Article 3.1C 14E of the Anderson Township zoning resolution. The proposed development, the applicant is requesting to keep an existing accessory structure, which is an enclosure for ducks. It's about a 10 by 20, located 10 feet from the west property line in the rear yard area. History, the house was constructed in 1950 and purchased by the current owners in February of 2017. A complaint was received by staff regarding ducks on May 1st, 2024. An inspection was done on May 3rd, which confirmed the complaint. There is 2 zoning certificates on file, one for a deck in 2003 and another for a fence in 1990. Here you can see the property map of the property with about 130 feet of frontage on State Road. Here's an aerial of the map and the topography of the map, the topography map for the property in question as well. And then photos from the front of the property. You have facing the house and facing away. You can see there the enclosure for the ducks. Closer pictures with you can see the ducks in the pictures here now. And then the appeal from the appellant. It was a little difficult to see. We received them in black and white in the email version. There was red, so when it states where the proposal's going in red, it's this square right here. So if you have your packets with you, it's going to be that square right there. And then there's a second image as well. And again, it's a small square that doesn't fit within the rest of them. And then findings, staff is of the opinion that the property in question will yield a reasonable return, or whether there can be beneficial use of the property without the variance. The property is zoned single family and would yield a reasonable return without the variance. Agricultural structures are permitted on residential properties, but again, they need to meet the 100-foot setbacks from, again, both side lot lines, the rear lot line, and the front yard, or the front lot line as well. Staff is of the opinion that the variance is substantial. The accessory structure would be 10 feet from a lot line, again, which would be a 90-foot variance. The essential character of the neighborhood would be altered, and adjoining properties would suffer a substantial detriment as a result of the variance. The agricultural structures and uses are permitted, again, in residential zones, but they must be at least 100 feet from any property lines, and the property in question is only 130 feet. And the variance would not adversely affect the delivery of governmental services. And then the staff's of the opinion that spirit and intent of the zoning requirement would not be observed. The agricultural structures are permitted anywhere on lots of 5 acres or more. Otherwise, they would need to meet the 100-foot setback from property lines. The applicant stated that the enclosure would be closest to the neighbor that shares ownership of the ducks. However, a variance runs with the land, so if the property owner that shares that ownership were to leave, the new neighbor would have the enclosure 10 feet from their property line. And then again, the variance runs through the land, so that wouldn't change at any point. And then these are the standards to be considered.
Any questions from the board?
I have a question. So if the variance is granted, it is for that specific structure, correct? I know it stays with the land.
It would be, typically a condition is, in substantial compliance with the plan submitted. So again, yeah, it would have to be specifically what they
Okay.
approve for.
Thank you for the clarification.
Mm-hmm.
Did we measure how far the proposed location would be from other structures or homes, or only the property line?
I don't know if that was measured. It's going approximately, let me see if, again, ballpark, we're lining it up about there. So probably somewhere in this area, I would presume, if I were to translate the two.
And the state road property line was 130 feet. It's using that as a marker. It looks like it's probably a little more than 130 feet to either of the two neighboring houses. Does that seem about right? Maybe even more than that. Okay. All right. I mean, that's what I'm trying to figure out. I understand. We didn't.
Sure.
measure it. That's fine. Okay. That was my only question.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else?
So looking at that picture that you have up right now,
Mhm.
is what we're talking about back here?
The current structure is, I believe, over in this area at the moment. The proposal is moving it, again, closer to the neighbor that has common ownership of the ducks, or some of the ducks.
One other question. The zoning restriction is on the structure,
Correct.
not the ducks.
No, they can,
They could have free-range ducks run around the yard.
Chickens.
correct.
Pigs, whatever.
And so, is the structure like the shed itself, or is it the pen? Because in one of the photos, there's like a little shed, and then there's a little
Screen
fenced-in area.
Screen attachment.
Is that-
Screen, isn't it? I think it's like.
Oh, like
Do
a lanai. Can,
I think so.
Do you want
We'll
to answer
ask
that
the
one?
Yeah,
applicant
could you
too, I
move,
guess, but-
move us?
We
to
can
the-
ask the applicant, but we, typically for ones we have done in approved locations, it's the whole structure that houses the animal. So the phrase we always use is we don't regulate the animal, we regulate the structure. So, if it has like an exterior enclosure, which this does, we would regulate that as well. It would be included in the size of it.
okay, thanks. Can I see just the photos of the existing structure
Sure.
again? Right, okay, so, for example, in the top left photo, there is the screened-in area off the side of the shed, but this fenced-in area appears to be a garden, and we'll ask the applicant, but presumably that's not a duck enclosure, that's just a little garden.
I
Sure.
was we
Yeah,
can
I would
ask the
refer to the-
applicant, but I was referring to that piece in the back.
Yeah, okay,
Mhm.
understood, thank you.
Anything else? Nope. Would the appellant or the appellant's representatives please come to the podium, speak into the microphone, state your name, address, any affiliation, and present your appeal. Yeah, we'll start with that.
So yeah, the green fencing there is broken. It doesn't house the ducks at all. It's just there to keep the ducks and the bunnies out of the garden. And the shed is a standard shed you can buy from Home Depot or anything else. It's not an offensive color. It's a light green color. And the pen is attached to it so that they can be inside or outside in the summer if it's really hot. So for them to just be enclosed with the shed would be hot.
the proposed location, do we know how far it would be from other houses or structures of any kind, but particularly other houses? Let's start there.
So I went out and measured the yard myself when we first got the complaint to see how far it was from each fence line. If I had to guess from each adjacent house, it's probably close to 200 feet at least, if not more, especially the house to the left there in the photo, sits up a little higher than that one to the right of us, sits a little bit back behind us. It's probably well over 200 feet. It's where we propose to move it, we need to move it is, you can see the pool in the yard of that house to the left, and it will sit just behind the furthest back edge of that pool, yeah, right about where that cursor is. Our yard kind of has a top level, and then it goes down a little hillside and flattens out again, and we can put it down at the bottom of the hillside. To put it back any farther would be a stretch, I think it's meant to be able to run water out, to feed and water them, but also keep it clean, and it's becoming a lot of hose line to run out there, and then, whatever, you got to repair those, so, it would be a little bit of a struggle to push it back any further than that.
And the neighbor to the left with the solar panels, that's the one that also owns part of the ducks, correct? Okay.
And they take care of them when we're out of town, whatever, so.
So the new neighbors, have they expressed any issue?
I spoke with him the other day, not in person, via messenger. He said he can smell them from his deck. And I said that was interesting to me because, like I said, for the 2.5 years that the other former neighbors really lived there, they never had any complaints. And I said, you know, thanks for letting me know. And I was out there earlier this week. I mucked out all the dirt around the pen and put new, like pine, whatever, the word is escaping me right now, but like pine mulch, basically, you know, down to cut down on the smell and that sort of thing. But stay in the yard, they don't get in other people's yards, and they don't fly actually around, they have to fly when they lay eggs, so.
So you're gonna move the shed and the pen back in the back of the yard? Is that what you're planning to do?
Well, I'd love to just leave it where it is, but if the variance would be granted in light of us moving it, we are willing to do that. And it will be rebuilt in a slightly different manner, but the same kind of idea. We'll have the shed and then our pen attached to it.
Does the outdoor part of it, as proposed, come off the north side of the shed or the south side of the shed, or
In where we would move it.
where you'd move
So
it?
my husband drew it in the proposed photo running lengthwise, the way the land does. That would be fine. Our preference would actually be to turn it sideways though, so it sits horizontally across the yard, so the front side of that outer pen would go into the middle of our yard. That solid side of the shed would be along the fence line, closest to where the pool sits. We have almost 100% greenery that runs up and down those fence lines. Obviously, in the winter time when there's no leaves on it, you can see through it, but it's covered in a lot of ivy and honeysuckle and things. So when it's in full bloom, kind of climb up over the fence to see anything in either yard.
Any other questions? Thank you. We'll now take we'll now take testimony from those persons who support the appeal. Remember, you must be recognized, come to the podium, speak into the microphone, state your name, address, and any affiliation to the case. So are you the neighbor to the left? Okay. Okay. Any questions? Thank you. We will now take testimony from those who oppose the appeal. Hearing none. He's not speaking.
We can't ask him.
Can't ask him.
Mr. Chair, I move we close the public hearing on case 17.
Second?
Hearing second, please call roll.
Mr. Heimkreider?
Aye.
Mr. Nye?
Aye.
Mr. Shekels?
Aye.
Mr. Halpin?
Aye.
Mr. Lawrence?
Aye.
We, a few months ago, we had almost the exact same case involving bees. And there's a lot of sympathy here, but the township's been really clear on the 100-foot rule, and whether we agree with that or not, that would be up to the zoning to change. You know, I have, when my kids were growing up, we had a rabbit hutch in the backyard, but I have 7.5 acres. So I didn't have an issue with it, but if I didn't have that, I couldn't do it. And we've already, in my mind, in the bee case, established the precedent of the 100-foot rule. And all of us like bees, all of us like ducks, bunnies, and all that other stuff. But I think we grant this for perpetuity. And while the neighbor likes it now, we grant it, doesn't matter. She sells it, it doesn't matter, because it's that way for the rest of time. And now, does the next beekeeper get to put his where he wants it? And that would be my question. I'd like,
Actually, I think it all goes to a case-by-case basis. So, although I agree that each decision, although they stand on them alone, each decision does impact possible future decisions and future applications. So, long and the short is, and in my mind, is that there's no neighbor issues at this stage. I would be okay with it, with the move.
the neighbor issues don't matter though, John. They don't matter at all in a long-term sense, because she could very well easily sell this property tomorrow, you know.
Yeah.
And the owner of the property could easily sell it tomorrow. You know, the question is, to my mind, is the township has been adamant about the 100-foot. Now, if this was 98 feet or 97 feet, I think we could all probably make a case for the 2 or 3 or 5 feet. But it's a substantial difference. And I would probably approve a 97 or 98 foot in an individual case.
Did we didn't approve the bees?
No.
I guess question for staff. My memory is that a variance will lapse if it is unused for a period of time. Does anyone recall whether that's correct? Like a non-conforming use can be continued until it is abandoned, which is usually for 6 months or a year or 2 years, whatever it is. Is that also true for a variance? Like, is there a provision to the effect that if there are no ducks for 2 years, then, year 3 you can't bring back the ducks? Is it really in perpetuity, I guess is my question. I didn't think to check the code before.
That is, from our zoning resolution, I don't believe that's mentioned. So I believe it would run in perpetuity. I believe that would probably be the same way with the Ohio Revised Code if I were, again, we could table and ask Gary, but
That's, yeah.
from my understanding of how variances work, it runs with the land for good. I think, I'm trying to think if lots were combined, how that might affect it, but again, I don't think that's relevant necessarily to this case. I believe,
Okay.
again, if the lot stays untouched, then it runs with the lots.
So different from a non-conforming use then?
Correct.
Yeah, for non-conforming uses, yeah,
Yeah.
if it
Okay.
goes unused for 2 years, then it would lose its non-conformity. Mhm.
With respect to the B case, I remember the case, but I wasn't at that meeting for whatever reason. That was off of, Clough on Evanor, is that right? Or Forest Crest?
Corner lot on, I can't remember the intersection.
I was just trying to look it up. It was,
Yeah.
it was either Evanor or Gilcrest or Forest
Right.
Way or Forest Lake.
And there was a substantial amount of neighborhood support for that.
Or maybe Endo Valley. Yeah. I guess what I'm thinking, so with respect to precedent, I mean, any given zoning decision has no precedential effect for the next zoning decision. But I understand your point, we should be consistent in our application. My memory of the B case is the houses were much closer together. Does that jive with what everyone else remembers?
I don't think I was there for that case.
Okay. I can't quite remember which street it's on, and I wasn't at the hearing, but my memory is that they were much closer together. I think that might be a distinguishing factor.
But the neighbors were all in agreement with it. So,
Mhm.
and so
Yeah.
they all wanted it. you
Mhm.
know, And that, we made the decision because of the size and the setback that not to grant.
Yeah.
And tell me the difference, I guess.
Well, I think what I would say is that whatever the setback might be from the property line here, one distinguishing thing is that it seems to be at least 200 feet from any neighboring house.
But it's not the house that's determining it.
I understand. I mean, I would say that's how I would distinguish it. Sometimes we say, we talk about practicalities. What are we really looking at? We're looking at something that the testimony is, 200 feet or more from a house. I know it's close to the property line. It seems like you could, nudge it this way or that and get up to roughly 60 feet from any property line. If they put it right dead set in the middle of their property, it'd be 60 feet from a property line or a 100-foot requirement. Would we grant a variance then?
I doubt it, but as I said earlier, I mean, if we're talking a 3 or 5 foot variance in a situation like this, I think we would all probably grant the variance. But this is very substantial.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I think it's a close call. Right?
This might be for staff or when you guys want to look at the math, but if you move from where it's proposed to go, and you move it more to the middle of that back part, so then instead of 10 feet off the what's the back? The front's 130, what's the back? I thought I saw that.
120.
120? And the enclosure's 20 feet, or 10, which way was it?
10 or 20, depending on how you situate it.
So if you did it 20, you'd have 50 feet on each line, right?
Yep.
But you'd be closer to the other neighbor's pool, right?
Yeah. Well, and their house, yeah.
Well, yeah. I was just trying to figure out the math on how close to be the property line.
Or if you
Or
rotate it
turned
so
it.
the narrow thing runs the narrow way on the lot, then you're 55 feet
Instead
from
of
the property
50.
line, instead of 50
Right.
on a requirement of 100. So you're getting closer, but you're still pretty far.
Right. So let
I'm
me
trying
ask.
to think of a justification for granting it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let me ask this of staff. So if the issue would be, if I read this correctly, it's an agricultural structure.
Mm-hmm.
So if there wasn't a structure, meaning the shed in this instance, then is the pen an agricultural structure by itself?
Fences are structures, right?
Is the fence considered the structure? Okay. So there wouldn't be okay. Thanks for clarification.
Were you looking for free-range ducks?
Well, I was just trying to see if there was something else
Yeah.
there. That's all I have.
Yeah, I mean, they would be permitted to put a shed there, they'd be permitted to put a fence there, they just can't put ducks in it, essentially, right?
But at the same time, there's nobody here to oppose it, is what I keep going back to. But at the same time, it's not somebody that, no one would oppose it that hasn't bought the property yet, to your point.
I understand their plight, and we've had this on other cases. And as much as I understand their plight and sympathetic to it, I do not favor granting.
Scott, where are you on this?
Well, I mean, given the lot itself, I mean, 120, not a narrow lot, but for this purpose, it is a narrow lot. And if the complaint is the smell because it's so close to the house on the right, if they moved it back into the middle, I think that would kind of alleviate it. And I know the standard is it has to be 100 foot from the line, but I mean, in this I think it has to be a case by case because they can't buy another lot, they can't expand in any way. So, I mean, does
But
that
they-
just limit everything they can do on their property?
Well, it does, but that's what zoning does. And
Yeah.
in general, not just in this specific instance, but zoning puts requirements on the property and the structures. You know.
I think where I come down on this, what I'm really struggling with is that if they had said, I'm gonna put a dead set in the middle of my lot, and I'm gonna arrange it so it runs narrow side east-west, and so I'll have 55 feet to each lot, and it's be at the same depth in the lot, so we're still, I'm gonna estimate, 125, 150 feet to the closest house, which is the house on the east. I'm estimating, I don't know. I'd say, I think I would grant that variance. And so, why should I deny it when they're actually moving it farther from any house just because it's closer to a property line? I understand the answer is going to be because the code says you look at the property.
The property line, the house doesn't matter.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I understand.
yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, I understand that's
yeah.
the text, but I
Yeah.
think as a practical matter, think about character of the neighborhood and effect on surrounding properties and so on, where the house is does matter.
So how is this different from us denying the beekeeper?
Yeah, I might have voted to grant
Well,
that one.
no, it's fine.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was a much smaller lot. I think it's roughly the same width. It was much more narrow. It was on the corner of whatever the side street was.
So if he had 20 more feet on his lot, we'd have approved it?
I don't know. This is a tough one.
I tend to think, because of the depth of the lot, and they put it that far back, I don't know, I'm willing to accept it.
And I think
If that lot were half the size, I would say, if it were half the length, if it were
A third of it?
160 feet deep, I
What
would.
about if it's 40%? Where's the?
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I mean, I think I'm of the same mind. One of the questions I was going to ask was, well, couldn't you put it farther back from state? And the answer is, well, no, not really, because of the topography and because the need to get utilities out there and so on. And I think we're trying to find the best of both worlds. That might. What do you got to add?
I'm very sympathetic
I know
to
you are.
people. I was very sympathetic to the beekeeper. I had rabbit hutches growing up, But, and I'm sympathetic to granting variances, which is what we do in probably 95 to 98% of the cases that come before us, we grant the variance. But those, usually we're dealing with a couple feet here, a 33-foot setback versus a 35-foot rule, those kind of items. And this is substantially more.
I guess the other thing I would say, and I think maybe this is the last thing I would say, is that granting a variance is not a license to be a nuisance. So, if the ducks are messy or loud or noisy, saying that the zoning code permits the duck structure isn't a defense to a claim from a neighbor administratively or legally that, they're annoying and they gotta go. Zoning and nuisance operate independently of each other. And so, we could even include a condition, ducks can't be a nuisance. And if someone thinks they're a nuisance, they could come back here and present their evidence it's a nuisance, so we could revoke the variance.
They're gonna quack. How many quacks is a nuisance?
Well, that may be a factual determination someone has to make someday. Even if this were permitted there, someone could raise a nuisance claim, it wouldn't come before us, but they'd go to court, sue you for nuisance, try to get an injunction to shut you down, and a jury or a judge would have to decide how many quacks is too many quacks. That happens. I've been there when it happened. So I think keeping that in mind, that if we allow this, and I think I'm leaning that way, it's not a license to be a pain in the butt to your neighbors. I think maybe that's something that we should consider.
Well, that applies to anything we grant.
It does, yes.
It's not specific to ducks or
True.
bees or
Yeah.
bunnies or whatever,
Absolutely.
horses or cows.
Yep.
I just think placing it deeper on the lot would be a common ground between them and the neighbors.
Deeper than the current proposal?
No, what they're proposing, as opposed to where it is now.
Yeah.
Because where it is now, it's, like, went there today and walked up to the fence, it's like right
Right
there.
along, yeah.
Right, and it's very close to that house, and when I did walk up to it, I could smell it, but I don't know if it's because it's 95 degrees outside, and you're gonna smell anything. You smell, I'm an appraiser, so you walk through the yard and I can smell dog poo. So, you're not gonna get away from that. But I think moving it back further in the yard is probably the better way to go.
I'm good with that.
It's the common ground.
Makes sense to me.
Looks like I'm the one contrarian here. I'll stick with being the contrarian.
Yeah, I appreciate your arguments. I'm with you, but
Oh,
I'm gonna go vote too. All right, Mr. Chair, with respect to case 17/2024 BZA, I move that we approve the variance in accordance with the plans presented.
Second?
I second.
Hearing second, please call roll.
Can you please clarify in your motion which shed, are you approving the
Yeah,
new
what did you
location?
approve? Where is
or
the shed
Oh,
going?
The new location. Yes,
Consistent with the plan submitted.
consistent with plans submitted.
Second.
Mr. Heimkreider?
Aye.
Mr. Nye?
Aye.
Mr. Shekels?
No.
Mr. Halpin?
Aye.
Mr. Lawrence?
Aye.
Clarify, it can go to the left of the yard, or you want it in the middle?
It's approved for the proposed location in this middle.
Yeah. The one on the left.
I'll be in touch next
Well,
week.
it wasn't approved for both locations. It was approved for where it is on the drawing.
You guys are good?
The motion said where it is on the drawing.
Wait, I'm sorry.
You were asking if you could put it in the middle, correct?
No, the proposal we submitted was closer to the fence line where the neighbor's pool is in the photo.
Right.
But there was discussion brought up about if we put it in the middle of our lot, then it's even further from
Right.
the property. And honestly, we could care less if we want it in the middle or on the
No.
fence line.
The motion is what it is right now, unless you want to amend it, yeah.
Sure.
What we said is,
So the question was just getting clarification on where it was approved to go, and as we clarified at the end, it's approved to go consistent with the plan she submitted, which will be the new designated location in the deeper left-hand portion.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. Thank you. And we will take care of journalization. That will be next.
who's the other guy?
He was here for the whole thing, and then he walked out.
I-
No, when the city guy, chicken guy, he went out and they passed business cards back and forth. I don't know if he's a painter or.
So we could have asked him.
Yeah, why?
We don't have to
I
ask.
kind of invited him to speak up, and he just sat there, so.
He doesn't have to ask.
I knew he doesn't.
Yeah.
None of my business, that's fine. Yeah.
Yeah, I assumed he was complaining.
At this house.
he was for here for this case? But he didn't speak for or against?
And you didn't sit with the applicant.
I wonder if he's the one who filed the complaint.
But he was at this time.
Oh, he was at the house itself. Okay.
In theory, he signed in on the sheet, so.
He's
yeah,
got,
we can,
Track him, if that's his real name.
if, that's fine. We can on the third one. That's fine. Are you requesting for our investigation to be placed in your packet next month? The results of the investigation to find out who he is?
Right, put it in the.
yeah.
Just to clarify as public record
We'll
that that
expect
is
a
not what
report
you're
in the
doing.
morning.
Okay.
All right.
Is that it?
No,
well,
no,
journalization.
we gotta
Journalization.
journalize them all,
Oh,
John.
Yeah.
Is that it?
I forgot.
These damn kids, they don't remember anything.
I tell ya.
If you want to. All right.
What's at the theater tonight? Elvis? I thought he was dead.
No, he's in Michigan working at a pizzeria.
Oh, are you still working on 17? Okay. I said you can finish 17 and then bring it. I don't care. I don't care. We're good.
Oh, that's right. We have to check it out, don't we?
Yeah, you can move it over in a second. Are we ready?
Ready. Ready to go.
All right. Just let me know when you want me to scroll.
I agree.
Good.
Cool.
Good.
Cool. Easy enough.
Mr. Chair, with respect to case 15, I move that we approve and journalize our decision.
Second.
Roll call. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Heimkreider,
Aye.
Mr. Nye,
Aye.
Mr. Shekels,
Aye.
Mr. Halpin,
Aye.
Mr. Lawrence.
Aye.
And here's
I'm
case
going, Sarah, I got a question, because it'll be coming up in 2. Okay. I could approve that one even though I voted against, because all I'm approving is that this is a document that says what happened, correct?
Correct.
I'm not
Correct.
approving the decision.
Correct.
Correct.
Okay.
Can somebody remind me who voted on that?
Who? The
Who
motion
made-
and second? I believe Nye motioned and then Halpin second.
Great, thank you.
Yep. And then this is ready for you. You can tell me when you're ready to scroll.
Must be your beat
Get the,
Oh, this here?
flash drive from him.
This one right here.
Oh, yeah. Let me see.
I'm good.
Is it red? No.
Just to confirm, are the other for you good for me to scroll?
Okay, there we go.
So,
That's what it is.
all right.
Got it.
Those pesky iPhones.
I tell ya. Yeah, I mean, it's a new one.
this
I just
back.
got it. That was curious for me. And that's been there since '08. Now all of a sudden it's an issue.
He
Okay.
built it without a permit.
When was the last time you did a brief?
What? Well, I might be able to. I also part-time. I might be able to speak on this a little bit. So this has been in the works for some time. They've
I
been.
noticed the drawing was 2022. I wondered, has it been?
Oh, was it? So
was
it had been
COVID.
identified
COVID.
a little bit ago. Paul has been working with him for some time, and then there was another development on Van Vista that again reignited this. So this is just to solve it once and for all. So we are good. He removed a few of the elements on his property, as you saw. There's a lot happening.
Yep.
So he removed some. Yep, he had. Yeah, that's what he was referring
Yeah,
to.
right.
So he's removed some of it. He has permitted for most of it. That was the only thing left, was that structure. So it is now rectified. Are we good with the rest? Great.
Mr. Chair, with respect to case 16, I move that we approve and journalize our decision.
Second?
I second.
Please call the roll.
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Halpin?
Aye.
Oh, Mr. Sheckles, sorry.
Aye.
Mr. Lawrence?
Aye.
I couldn't see you.
Well, I'll say aye at once.
Cool screensaver, man.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Somebody else also. I was also asked if this was
Cool.
board order.
Yes, for free chicken
So-
up at the other
So,
place right now, you'll get yourself in trouble.
Is this in the township somewhere?
I'm not going to comment on that.
It's the replacement pool for Coney Island down here.
Oh no.
You are still being recorded?
So this is still public.
Well, they wasted no time tearing up that pool.
They had the permit in their hand,
So I'm going to pull up the resolution now.
Thank you.
and all they had to do was take one bite out of the bottom of it.
Great.
And it was
Jeff,
over.
that might be a sore subject in the green space
Eh.
inspection.
And you can see that on your screen is the resolution to be looked at and talked about.
You think you spend time outside? Okay. When it drops 15 degrees.
Yeah.
I'm good.
Great.
I think maybe we should rephrase number 1 to say that while variance maybe, don't start typing until they get the full thought out.
Sure.
It is substantial.
I mean, yeah, I mean, it may be substantial, but, you know, on balance, I think we shouldn't say that it's not substantial. I think we should say while the variance is substantial,
It's not maybe, it is substantial.
It's not egregiously substantial.
No.
I
It
think,
is
I think we should say while the variance may be substantial.
It is substantial.
I hear you saying that, and you
It is substantial, and even an attorney would say that.
While the variance may be
It is
substantial,
substantial.
the proposed location or the authorized, the location that we're authorizing here, represents
You still have it may be substantial. There's no way you could say that might be substantial
I hear you.
with a straight face. Can you? It is substantial.
Sure was. Leave it.
I wouldn't capitalize it.
Can someone help me finish this thought? Like, what I'm trying to convey is, I understand, while the variance, what if we said, while the distance from nearest property line is substantially less than 100 feet, the proposed location is more than 200 feet
Yeah.
from the nearest home.
I don't think you need to get into the specifics of that kind of detail. I think while the variance is substantial, the location as submitted by the applicant is acceptable to,
Could we say sufficiently far from any
Sufficiently
existing
far
homes or something?
from,
yeah,
sufficiently distant from neighboring residents. Yeah, for sufficiently distanced from neighbors' residents.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the point I'm trying to convey.
Given the narrow limitations of the lot.
Given the narrow limitations.
Keep in mind, I was homeschooled, so this
Not
is a lot for my
narrowly, narrow.
brain.
Narrow.
Were you real?
Yes.
You were homeschooled? Huh.
Remember you first in your class?
Were you the only one in your class?
No. I should not have spoken. Oh,
You probably heard that one before.
I think I've probably heard it all. Wait, what's this mean?
Yeah, we gotta.
Hold on. Oh, the agro.
That's got to be reworked.
We can take out the second sentence paragraph. Take that one.
This one?
Yeah.
No edits?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm trying to help you write your variance that I voted against.
Disagree with it.
Sometimes taking the opposite side of an issue helps clarify.
Yep. I'm good with it.
Mr. Chair, with respect to case 17, I move that we approve and journalize our decision.
Second.
Here in second, please call roll.
Mr. Heimkreider?
Aye.
Mr. Nye?
Aye.
Mr. Shekels?
Aye.
Mr. Halpin?
Aye.
Mr. Lawrence?
Aye.
Are we done recording?
No. Motion to
Adjourn.
adjourn?
Second.
Please call roll.
Mr. Heimkreider?
Aye.
Mr. Nye?
Nay.
Mr. Shekels? Mr. Halpin?
Aye.
Mr. Lawrence?
Aye.